So Joanne Miller is an RN and a DMP, has more than 30 years of hospital operations and nursing excellence experience, and is Chief Nurse Executive for Bay State Health and Chief Nursing Officer at Bay State Medical Center in Springfield. Joanne has served as Senior Vice President, Patient Care Services, Vice President, Surgical Services, Chief Nursing Officer, and Interim CEO in both major academic medical centers and community-based hospital systems. Prior to joining Bay State Health, Joanne served as CNE at Carson Tahoe Health in Nevada, interim CEO at Jupiter Medical Center in Jupiter, Florida. She was the CNO and VP of Patient Care Services at Johns Hopkins Medicine Sibley Memorial Hospital in Washington, D.C. And in this capacity, she led the development, implementation, and evaluation of nursing practice and patient care standards across acute care hospital, ambulatory sites, and its skilled nursing and assisted living facilities. She held system nursing leadership roles to foster collaboration and promote peer learning to improve quality and the patient experience, which we all know is really important. So Joanne holds a Doctor of Executive Nursing Practice from Drexel University, a Master's degree in Nursing Administration from the University of Hartford, and a Bachelor's in Nursing from Mount St. Mary College. She is also a Malcolm Baldrige Executive Fellow, which is a big deal. Joanne is a passionate champion for patient safety, that's so near and dear to my heart, quality and patient and staff experience, and has a proven track record in improving value-based purchasing measurements. Joanne states that she did not choose nursing, it chose her, so we're very glad that it did. And also, she's a Connecticut native, has been married for 37 years, and has 2 grown sons. As a family, they enjoy traveling, hiking, baseball, and long family meals. So please join me in welcoming Joanne. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. As I said to Allison a little earlier, you know, I used to give presentations all the time, but then COVID turned our world upside down, and now we're, you know, Zoomaholics. But it's very nice to be here and present. I might be a little rusty. I have a little tiny cough. I'm not contagious. Nothing's going to happen to you. Just might be a little annoying to listen to, but I do have some water up here. So thank you for having me. Welcome, colleagues, students, faculty. Whoops. There we go. We're going to have a good time. And friends, a special thank you to Karen Giuliano for inviting me to come and talk with you today. You know, nurses have great stories, and I'm going to start out with sharing a story with you. I had a CEO at Sibley Memorial Hospital, Johns Hopkins Medicine. He was a first-time CEO, and he loved innovation and loved design. So he was snooping around for space, and he found 5,000 square feet that belonged to medical records, moved them out into trailers on the 27-acre campus, much to the dismay of the physicians. Thought he was absolutely out of his ever-loving mind because he was going to turn this space into an innovation hub. He wanted to have the largest innovation hub in a community hospital in the country. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is a little bit much, but whatever. He's got an EDD from Harvard and a PhD from Hopkins. He's got something together, and you know what? A lot of wacky ideas turned out to change the world. So we went along with it, and so he built this 5,000 square foot innovation hub with mock patient rooms in it. We had 3D printers, we had every kind of post-it whiteboard, and all the things that you need to do some design thinking. And so that we just started, and so he brought in Doug Solomon, who does design thinking training for Google and basically all of Silicon Valley. And so I spent 3 days with him learning design thinking, and then of course my favorite letter A word, and that's accountability. My boss says, so now you're responsible for 140 design and lean projects every year. So that's sort of how all of this design process stuff happened with me. It was sort of by accident and not design, but nonetheless, it was an awful lot of fun, and we did some really cool things. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. You know, sharing these stories is just one piece of it, but it's connecting to our purpose and our reason for being here together and wanting to, you know, make a difference. So I'm going to do all my own little stuff here. Let's see how that works out. So I'm just going to share a little bit with you about our health system, Bay State Bay State Health. We're 988 licensed beds over 4 hospitals. We deliver over 4,600 babies every year, 188,000 emergency department visits annually. But I'll tell you that today several bus loads came in, and it is absolutely positively jam-packed. And I'll talk a little bit about ED redesign later on in the presentation. Almost 40,000 surgeries, and we're the largest provider of care for the underserved in Western Massachusetts. I am just not getting in the groove here, this little thing. All right, here we go. At Bay State Medical Center, we've been serving and delivering compassionate care to Western Massachusetts since 1873. That's a really, really, really long time, right? It's a beautiful campus. So Bay State Franklin is also part of our system. It's located in Greenfield. There's 189 bed community hospital. It has a state-of-the-art surgery center, 24-hour ED, orthopedic cancer care, and a beautiful infusion center. Babies are born in a birthplace where birthing experiences are customized to meet the patient's and family needs. Deb Provost is the Chief Nursing and Chief Administrative Officer at Franklin. She has been with the system for about 46 years. Bay State Noble is located in Westfield. It's 85 beds, acute care hospital, and it has inpatient, outpatient services, cardiology, cardiac rehab, GI, women's health services, including 3D mammies, a 24-hour ED for over 80,000 residents in Westfield. And Lizette Grimaldi is the Chief Nursing and Administrative Officer there. And then the last one is Wing. It's a 68-bed acute care community hospital in Palmer. It has a 24-hour ED as well and a broad range of inpatient and outpatient services, including primary and specialty care. They also have a convenient care, which is for sort of walk-in treatment for illness or injury. Carly Barrett started her career at Bay State Medical Center, and she's now the Chief Nursing Officer and Chief Administrative Officer there. So everything that we do at Bay State Health is connected to our purpose. Our mission, vision, and values prescribe the framework for our purpose. And so our mission is the reason why we exist. The vision is how we're going to get there, how we're going to be successful. And we enhance your life as a trusted partner in health. And I want to talk a little bit about trust, because a very dear colleague of mine, Peter Pronovost, said, change happens at the speed of trust. And that's how we advance, building trust relationships, because even all the engineering and the technology, this beautiful room, there was clearly brilliant architects and engineers that made it. But if we don't trust each other, we don't really work well together as a team. And in healthcare, we need to bring value to the table. And the cost of healthcare is exceeding our reimbursement system. So everything that we do with our partners in engineering, design, innovation, we have to bring value and decrease the waste in the system and improve our patients' experience. And our values. This is what we expect of all of our employees, from the housekeepers who are responsible for reducing infections by keeping our environment safe and clean. Our central sterile processing employees, they prevent infections by keeping the instruments safe during the surgeries that we perform on our families. And so everyone is expected to practice with respect, integrity, teamwork, and lifelong learning. And I suspect that's why many of you are here today for some lifelong learning. So the American Nurses Association updated the scope and the standards, a practice document to reflect nurses' evolving role in innovation. I don't know if there's some decades-old nurses here, but I'm one of them, and we used to call ourselves scrappy. But the truth of the matter is that scrappiness is because we never had the tools that we really needed to do our job, and so we made them ourselves. Now we're innovative. It's a lot more letters and it's a bigger word, but it's basically the same principle. So at Bay State, we have amazing, amazing nurses. We're very proud of them. Their dedication to excellence and improving every single facet of care in the medical and surgical ICUs has resulted in being awarded the Beacon Award by the American Nurses Credentialing Center. We've received the Bronze Award, the Silver Award, and this year we received the Gold Award for their outstanding work. Also, the American Nurses Credentialing Center has Magnet for nursing excellence, and there's about 8% of the hospitals in the country that are Magnet. We are redesignated. We are a 4-time Magnet organization, which puts us in an elite group of 1% of the hospitals in the country. It's so humbling, to serve those nurses. But we're not done. We're on journey number 5, and we will absolutely positively, be successful with that. Our nurse residency program is also accredited with very high marks. And on the, on this right over here, and sort of that left over there. But that's the picture of our nursing annual report. And it was a labor of love, and really all we did was we took all the stories from the nurses and put them in an annual report, and our marketing colleagues submitted them for an international award. So there were over 1,000 applicants in 21 countries, over 4 continents, and we won the first prize. Yeah, it was, the recognitions happen because our nurses are connected to the purpose, as I talked about in the previous slide, and they have a sense of believing and belonging, believing in what they do, and feeling like they belong to something much bigger than the day-to-day that they're doing on their unit. And they're connected to the values of teamwork, and as I said, why I think most of you are here today, and that's for lifelong learning. So innovation happens when there's a healthy work environment and when nurses feel valued and appreciated. We don't feel valued and appreciated. It's not really a motivational environment to figure out how I'm going to change my clinical workflows, right? And so it's very important to create that healthy work environment. So I want to talk a little bit about what that's like. So we asked one of the nurses in our heart and vascular unit if she could describe the nurses that she works with. And so she created this heart cloud. And the heart cloud has all the attributes of what she felt her colleagues were like. And we actually used it in the back cover of our annual report. And then this little I appreciate you is a Bitmoji of me. And it's not about me, but it's just to sort of have some fun and add some levity to what we do. But last September, we started something called Thankful Thursday. And every Thursday morning and Thursday evening, myself and team members, we do warm welcomes and fond farewells with all the team members as they come into the organization or leave. And we have music, a lot of dancing, bubbles, healthy treats. And the expectation is that each unit will go back and then have their own unit-based Thankful Thursday where they can share that love and kindness, with each other. And we also do every month a Daisy Award. And I'm going to just tell you a little story about the Daisy Award. And in 1999, a 33-year-old man by the name of J. Patrick Barnes died after an 8-week battle with ITP, idiopathic thrombocytopenia purpura. And he left a wife and a 6-month-old baby girl, Riley. And his parents were absolutely devastated, as was the rest of his family. But they were absolutely positively in awe with the care that the nurses provided, not only to their son, but to the whole family during this 6-week battle. So they wanted to do something to remember their son, but they also wanted to recognize the nurses. So admittedly, over a very long dinner with an awful lot of wine, they came up with the Daisy Award, which has nothing to do with the flower. It stands for diseases affecting the immune system. So this is where sort of like your connection to purpose and feeling a sense of believing and belonging and making a difference. This started out as a little local award. It is now in 36 countries all over the world. It is the largest research body for diseases affecting the immune system in the world. And they have not only left a legacy for their son, but completely changed the way we value and recognize our nurses. So kudos to the Barnes family, the entire family, including his wife and now his daughter, all work for the foundation. So it's very much a family-run business, and I could call Bonnie Barnes at any time or text her, and she will answer me. She's really an incredible human being, and they pinch themselves every day that they just had this idea and it turned out into something that was quite extraordinary, just like their son and the nurses who took care of him. So the nurse in the middle, that's Carly Kimball. She's a nurse in our children and adolescents unit, and she is one of the recipients of our Daisy Award. And we presented that to her on her unit, and it just so happens mom and dad work at the hospital as well. So it was a great feeling and time for everyone. So we hosted a virtual event. You know, we became the Zoomaholics. So it was vis-a-vis Zoom with our academic partners to create an exemplar for enhanced academic collaboration to foster that culture of innovation and learning. Our School of Nursing deans and coordinators, including your own, very own Allison, shared their vision with me for improving our partnership with them. We had some work to do. And so we listened to understand, and together we began a journey to enhance the nursing student clinical placement and ultimately create a new generation of nurses. Just this past, the beginning of the semester, we just welcomed almost 300 nursing students. So that's not, you just don't do that because you want to do a good job. There's a science behind it, and that level of collaboration can never be underscored. So I'm grateful for our partnership. We can't do this alone. We lost an inordinate amount of experienced nurses all over the world with this pandemic, and it's our responsibility to create a new generation of nurses, and I'm not going to do that alone, and Allison and her faculty aren't going to do it alone here. So we have to work better together. I have 2 sons. Their wives are not going to take care of me when I'm old, so we have to make sure that there's nurses around to take care of us. I took care of my mother-in-law and my grandfather, and these people don't exist anymore. So here we go. So that's the what's in it for me, right? I got to make sure there's people to take care of me when I get really old. So we also have a nurse residency program. You know, the medical staff has been doing that for decades and decades and decades. And we were late to the party, nursing. So we learn from other disciplines, and we say we have to create an internship residency program. So we do have one. It does get accolades. But we have an innovative manager, and I'm going to tell you what she did to try to improve the program, because you know the millennials, I raised 2, so I could talk about them. And so these kids got a trophy because they showed up. They could have sat on the bench for 3 years, right? So they have to jump into the deep end of the pool, and they have to be part of the team immediately. They can't just sit around and wait a year to join the clinical ladder. Just doesn't work like that, right? So we had to reinvent our residency program. So I'm going to tell you what she did. But this pie chart just represents that our nurse residents, where they are throughout the campus, mostly are in medical surgical, but they're in surgical services. The ED takes a lot of them, pediatrics, and we put them in the NICU and the PICU. You know, there are some very courageous nurses out there that they want to try it, and if they pass a certain sniff test, we really take a chance on them, especially those who have been, you know, in healthcare a little bit before they actually went into the formal nursing program. We take them in critical care and, of course, in behavioral health. So what our innovative nurse manager did, Brittany Patterson, she reinvented the program. She did several focus groups with the nurse residents saying, how can we make the program better? And so now they have 3 different tracks to choose from. They can do the evidence-based practice, they can do the leadership track, or love your own track. And so they sort of like get to customize what they want, and then everybody gets some professional options. Some of them shadow me. So what do you want to be when you grow up? And they said, I want your job. And I said, fantastic. So see if you can keep up with me for 6 hours. They usually last about 3. But nonetheless, it's exciting to me, you know. I'm glad. I'm happy to, introduce them to the world. And, what's important, you surround yourself with people that are positive, supportive, and focus on your greatness. So my role as a chief nurse is to ensure that the voice of the patient, voice of the nurse, is embedded into an entire construction or renovation project, from design to innovation, the clinical workflows. We need space for just about everything. We've really outgrown our shell, and nursing education is one of them. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But, we follow Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and if we don't meet people's basic needs, then they become very disillusioned with their profession, and that's the last thing in the world that we want. And we also don't need a lot of well-intended architects to tell nurses how their clinical workflow should be. That doesn't work. So they have to be at the table. I remember many years ago, a colleague of mine, she would do consulting work for an architect because she was a lifer in the ED and she understood the clinical workflow. Well, they're not consultants for the firm anymore. They actually hire nurses because they brought them in a little bit too late to the party, and those mistakes in design and construction, as you know, are costly. So we don't want to do that anymore. And this is a picture of sort of the shell of some of the renovations that we're doing at Bay State now. So listen, imagine, do. So this is a human-centered design method, and you start with a question: how might I improve delivering care at the bedside? How might I improve a woman's experience with treatment for breast cancer? How might I improve my nursing students' experience at Bay State? So you start with the question, and then you just sort of work it through, and that's why the 5,000 square foot innovation hub sort of came in handy. You had a space to sort of think all that out. But here's just an example of some things that we would do in a mock-up room. You take a mock-up room, you put the adjustable computer arm in each room, so you don't have to take that computer on wheels everywhere, because every good nurse has WD-40 nearby, because those things get creaky and make an awful lot of noise, especially at night when you're trying to rest. So anyway, we put them in there and let it be for 2 weeks, and said to the nurses, put the Post-it where you think the arm is best for the clinical workflow. God bless you. And so then we also put the bedside medication verification, the barcoding for medication, put that on a little shelf, and then had the printer there. So put that in 4 spaces, same thing with the Post-its. 2 weeks go in, the room's open 24/7. So whatever spot got the most Post-its, that's where we decided that we were going to put that. And then what else am I telling you about? Oh, so back in the team station. I stopped calling nurses stations a long time ago, because the last time I looked at a nurses station, there weren't any nurses sitting in there. So I call them team stations. There's everybody but sitting in there. But nonetheless, we still have computers in there. So we, again, used a mock-up space and had different kind of chairs with arms, without arms, arms that stay up, arms that can go up and down. All these, we come in different shapes and sizes, right? So it's important that they help us ergonomically set up how that's going to look. And ceiling-mounted lifts to prevent back injuries. Now, how about that? This is really about treating the patient with dignity. If you saw some of the things that we would use to lift patients in the old days, you would think it was something out of a horrible museum. They were terrible. You had to get 5 people just to bring it in the room, rearrange 18 things. I don't know how the patient could possibly feel dignified. Plus, we have them in those god-awful gowns that haven't been redesigned in 65 years. So it's not a good experience, but our nurses, they get hurt. So they make these great lifts. To put them in the ceiling. I get to this organization who's building a brand new tower, and they were going to put four in each room, in the corners of the rooms. It's a 25-bed unit. And it's a hospital is known as a bariatric center of excellence. Now, you help me figure this out. It makes absolutely no sense. So I said, that's not happening. We need more. So we ended up spending $600,000 more and put more lifts in the rooms where the nurses told me that they belonged. And so what happens? What's the ROI? Patients are treated with dignity and respect, and my nurses aren't going out on leaves because they're breaking their backs. They need them for a really, really long time. So this is a really good investment, and it's important. The other thing was this was very, very big space, much bigger than the floor print that they were used to. And there was a beautiful medication room, followed all the regulatory requirements for medication room. It had one door on one side. So if you were on the side with the door, life was not so bad. But if you're taking care of patients on the other side of the room, it was forever to get there. But nobody did the steps to figure out how long it would take. Do you know that a nurse that works a 12-hour shift walks anywhere between 6 and 8 miles every single shift? And you want to know why that is? Bad designs. It's because we have, I'm going to talk a little bit more about why that is, but it's the truth. And what they do is they just constantly have to do, workarounds. So our nurse educators asked, how might we revolutionize the way we train our nurses? I'm going into a 4-time Magnet organization. I can't wait to see the nursing education space. I almost fell over. It's a storage room full of boxes. Nurses are hoarders, so they had a lot of stuff in there. But if I'm recruiting nurses and I'm putting my heart and soul into this, and that's the room I walked into, I would probably, call my mother and say, I got to join another team because this doesn't look too good to me. So we are fortunate, and they're listening, and we found really nice space. Not the space that anybody wanted, of course. They wanted us to go, how far away was that other space? Holyoke. Very nice here. Very, very nice in Holyoke, but I cannot say to a bedside nurse, it's only 45 minutes, please come down to the training center. It's not going to work. So the location is really important, and so the nurse, we actually had I would say a meaningful conversation. We could be heard across the campus that we were going to have it on site. And so the proposed space is in fact on site because sometimes you have to access quickly for rapid training. Remember Ebola? We didn't have a lot of time to put together what the training looked like for Ebola. I couldn't put them in a shuttle and bring them to another spot. That was not going to happen. So we know that. We need more simulation training. We need leveraging our evidence-based practice resources so they're all located together. And this is also really important. You have to not have so many distractions. And so we needed a soothing and quiet learning environment. And so we found a space in the library. You can't even say to the younger generation, use your library voices, because they don't go to a library. They don't know what that voice is supposed to be like. So you have to say, shh, they're playing video games over there. And then they understand. I know, it's unbelievable, right? So this is the actual floor plan. And it's got classroom setting, it's got some private spaces, it's got a kitchen, and then there's 4 simulation bays, and there's actually then like a storeroom to keep the stuff that we don't have to look at all the time. So we're excited about that. That's just another angle of view towards the teaching bays, and it also integrates some other new technology and simulation. So I love to tell stories, but I work with amazing people who have great stories to tell too. So this is Jen DeCarmo. She is our pediatric emergency department nurse manager, and we are doing redesign in our pediatric emergency department right now as we speak. And I have a video. I don't see the arrow.
Hi, I am Jenny DeCarmo, and I'm the manager of the Pediatric Emergency Department here at Bay State Medical Center. Frontline staff are the ones who brought to light the barriers of the current design. They continue to advocate for the patients and the staff, and it is really because of them that a redesign is possible. Frontline staff such as nurses, patient care techs, and operations associates work with patients daily. They know all the inner workings of the department and what they need to ensure the safety of everyone. That is why their voice is so important. It's concerning when staff feel they cannot express their ideas and concerns because that means that staff have lost interest or feeling in their work. As leaders, we must listen and involve staff in every avenue we walk down. The guiding principle behind the proposed PDED redesign is safety. Nursing took into great consideration the flow of patients and the optimization of care at each point of service. From improved invisibility of the waiting room, more thoughtfully placed and appointed triage rooms, to a secure pod for our behavioral health patients. The redesign creates an environment where both patients, nurses, and providers can be successful in achieving high-quality patient and family-centered outcomes. Hi.
Oh. So when you work on redesign, nurses, we get very comfortable in our spaces. Very, we have our own routine in the morning, we have our locker, this is where we put this is where we put that, this is where we put the other thing. So when you change those things and include changing where we keep our tools, it's very stressful. So was anybody here this morning for the kickoff when there was a video of Oriana okay, so Oriana is a very dear colleague of mine. She knows emergency department very well, and she joined me at Hopkins when we redesigned this emergency department. So I had the good fortune of working very closely with her, and she came to me and she said, we were preparing for a day in the life. In the old days, we used to call them, when we moved into a new space, you did a scavenger hunt and make sure you knew where everything was. Well, this is an entirely different world. And we need to practice a day in the life, right? So that we're working with the technology, because when we redesign, we just don't take our old clinical flow and put it in the new space. We have to learn a whole new patient flow with the nurse's feedback. But saying you're going to do it and then doing it in the new environment is totally different. So we just don't go in there and make sure you can find everything and know how to work it. We practice day in the life. I've been a patient in the day in the life while the nurses are in there with real live pretend patients to see how long it takes to walk from here. All of that stuff that really matters to decrease the anxiety when we actually go live with the move. But Oriana said to me, they're really stressed out. So I'm always like, well, I'm getting food and treats and stuff like that. She goes, yeah, but I think we have to do a little bit more. And I'm like, oh my God, Oriana, you're so right. Thank you so much. So I had my faculty do a class with the nursing students on the importance of self-care. So I got the nursing students to sit there like a big, huge assembly line, and they made hundreds and hundreds of little self-care packets, and they had lavender aromatherapy in them, dark chocolate, chamomile tea, some mindfulness exercises. They had a stress ball in there, and then we gave them out to the nurses on the day of the move into the new building or the new tower or the new unit. And then we'd had massage chairs, and that sort of started the whole design thinking about tranquility in respite rooms. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that. But I was so happy to see that Oriana kicked you off this morning. It was very endearing for me to hear. So we are also building at Bay State somebody's got to watch my time. I'm not doing well, am I? I don't usually do well in this department. How am I doing? 10 minutes, okay. So basically the same principles where we have mock space set up, feedback on the design and the layout. These are operating rooms, right? So this is like a really big deal, but we need them. The rooms are not the size that we want. When you want to recruit new surgeons, the first thing they ask you is, what's the square footage of your ORs? Plus, the equipment, even though it becomes minimally invasive, it's bigger. So the equipment gets bigger, the room has to get bigger, and so hence here we are, but really, it's going to be beautiful. We're calling it the Hospital of the Future. It's supposed to be ready in January, and there was the D word, a delay, so it looks like it's going to open in March of 23. So nurses do workarounds all day, right? Because what did we do? We designed systems that were perfectly designed to fail, and they do all day, every day. So nurses wear these incredible capes, and they do workarounds. And so finally, we learned from other industries medicine, healthcare finally learned that we need to be a little bit more humble and go outside of ourselves and learn from other industries. So a lot of the safety things that we focus on now are really come from aircraft carriers and submarines. Also, when I was chief nurse at Mount Sinai in New York City, our operations excellence team gave us industrial engineers to work with. Well, you should have heard the nurses. What in the heck am I supposed to do with an industrial engineer at the table? Fought it tooth and nail. You would not even believe it. Well, after a few projects, all of a sudden, we were missing one, and it was like, well, why are we going to have the meeting? They're not here. So it takes us a little bit of time sometimes, but it's important that we learn from other industries. So when we're doing design and innovation, we really have to work with our engineers, our architects, and listen to understand, and they have to listen to understand, the nurses too. And that's why together, we make beautiful new rooms like this and new hospital rooms where the patients feel safer and that we actually put them in the center of the care, which we typically have not in the past. So as a perfect example is the bed alarms and the chair alarms don't talk to the nurse call system, and then the nurse call system doesn't talk to the devices that the nurses carry here, so they can talk to the desk and each other all day long. So what do? They just get in more steps all day long and run fast. So if you were in the airline industry and you were the CEO of an airline and you tried to sell something to the CEO but said that the landing gear and the engine don't talk to each other, you would get thrown out of the room. But in healthcare, we're like, well, it's new, it's shiny, it makes sense, let's just get it. And so it's not good. And so we have to knock it off and stop doing that and keep nurses at the table where those kinds of decisions are made, because we said, hold on, Batman, that's not the way we're going to roll here. So this is an incredible story. The world turned upside down with the pandemic. Healthcare was already cracked, the porcelain was cracked, and now it's broken. And there's not enough crazy glue to put it together that you can drink a cup of tea. And so we've got a lot of work to do. And so what happened when COVID hit, we had patients with very, very long length of stays. And before people were vaccinated, a lot of them did die, especially those with multiple comorbidities. I'm not going to get into the clinical issue. However, when patients after 90 and 100 days, almost on a ventilator, were able to be discharged, it was like fast, what do you do? It's not exactly Ebola training, but it's the same principle. What do? This patient is gonna go home. We have to celebrate that. The nurses who have worked around the clock and lost so many patients have something to celebrate. So a group of nurses at Bay State got together and decided they had about 30 hours notice that this patient was going to be discharged. So they got together and they came up with what we call Code Rocky. So if a patient with a long length of stay is going to be discharged, we call a Code Rocky. The music starts to play. It is the theme from Rocky, and we have an enormous celebration, and I have a video. I want to show it to you. So I can't really describe it, but we play the theme to Rocky, and the patient and their loved ones and literally the entire hospital wishes them a fond farewell. It's really one of the most emotional things you've ever seen. I can't get rid of this Zoom thing. It'll just keep popping up. I'll just keep getting rid of it. So this is, an innovation that the OB team came up with. Do you keep seeing that or just me? Oh, I'm the only one that keeps seeing it. Okay, I feel better. I keep getting a pop-up about the Zoom. That's because I was making fun of it before. So hypertensive disorders in pregnancy are increasing nationally and remain a major source of maternal morbidity and mortality across the world. So a multidisciplinary team in OB started a few initiatives to help combat the trend with a focus on standardizing the care. Sorry, I keep getting these pop-ups. Standardizing care, improving postpartum and outpatient care, and expanding education in the emergency department. And one exciting project implemented as the part of this quality improvement initiative is something called Baby Scripts. It's a remote blood pressure monitoring tool that uses a smartphone app. And all postpartum patients with hypertensive disorder get a free blood pressure cuff, and with the Bluetooth and remote monitoring through the Baby Scripts app. And patients get reminders at home to check their blood pressure twice a day. Elevated or critical lab values trigger an outpatient workflow so that the OBGYN practice can follow up and assess the patient in a timely fashion. And the app also provides a full year of education for new parents. And the providers and nurses receive comprehensive education about hypertensive disorder in the pregnancy and the Baby Script app before the project went live on November 21st of 21. And their hope was to raise the patient's awareness and allow them to take a more active role in their care, all while keeping them safe. This is also value added because unnecessary visits to the emergency department are costly to everybody. Oh. So this was a great innovation from our nurses, and we called them hubsters, the design geeks from the Innovation Hub, and physical therapy. So when you have a patient with dysphagia, it's very debilitating and, quite frankly, very embarrassing. And so what do? We give them a sippy cup. So just to add to your dignity, we give an adult a sippy cup. So recognize that this was not a very patient-centered design. The nurses got together and they worked with patients and physical therapy, occupational therapy, and redesigned a cup that we called the Camo Cup. And so what it does is, so you can see the sippy cup with the yellow top, the blue top is the new design cup. So it holds an adult hands around the side much better, and it is a flow meter, right? So that a measured amount of liquid can go in for the patient to swallow at the same time, versus, especially if you're a little shaky, you can't control what comes out of a sippy cup. And that's what the top looked like. And this was done in the VA's Innovation Creation Make-a-thon Challenge. And our nurses won second place in the country for this Camo Cup design. And then we partnered with a local company and had them made and gave them out to all of our patients with dysphagia, help them get out of the ICU faster and help them get discharged to home faster. Boy, I'm really going over, I'm really sorry. So the ED has been really, really filled since the pandemic, and the volumes are really just keep coming in. So our ED worked with operations excellence teams and redesigned the rapid medical evaluation for patients that are a level 3 or 4. So those are the patients that you're really mostly worried about, and it gives them a modified evaluation along with the start of diagnostic orders. So that redesigned workflow involved multiple disciplines, multiple reiterations, and a deference to patient experience. So at the end of the day, it took quite a bit of practicing, but we did tabletop exercises to get the workflow down, and the truth of the matter is the success of the program was with a decreasing the amount of wait times and the rate of patients left without being seen, which of course is very dangerous, and that's not what we want. A daily management system, I could talk a lot about this, but I think the most important takeaway about daily management system is that it's a scientific methodology to reduce safety. It has the principle of high reliability organizations in that the frontline staff know where the defects are. They also know what the solutions are, but leaders don't listen to understand. So we have just implemented, it's not house-wide yet, a 4-tiered daily management system whereby 7 a.m. all team members start the huddle and we go over all the safety issues for the previous night and the shift That gets escalated to a Tier 2, gets escalated to a Tier 3 at 9:30, which I did before I got here. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, there's an 11:30 as well. That's Tier 4, very high-level people in the organization, because we have to take the brick walls down and help the staff. And then when the staff are seeing their problems get solved in rapid succession, those that can be, and so there's the ROI and the what's in it for me. And now every level of the organization is connected to the same purpose, and there's transparency and accountability. Why do I keep doing this? Around how we solve problems together. It's not just somebody else's fault. So, everyone's exhausted, absolutely exhausted, and so we have to learn relationship-based care, and that starts with taking good care of ourselves so that we can be better team members and then take better care of our patients and our loved ones. You know, a long time ago, it was a badge of honor to start your shift at 7 o'clock in the morning, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you haven't had anything to eat, you haven't had anything to drink, and you haven't been to the bathroom. You are not a delightful person to be around, and it's not safe because you're exhausted. So in the old days, when the charge nurse told you when you were taking your lunch and when you were taking your break, you just did it, right? Well, the kids today, they negotiate because they want to go to a different time. But you know what? Sometimes you have to deal with standard workflow, and sometimes you just have to go into incident command mode. So there's some of that going on. But the other issue is that our environments didn't provide spaces for nurses to have a respite. You have a very complicated delivery, a complicated family member to deal with, or an unexpected death of a patient you've been caring for a long time. You're only 4 hours into your shift. You got a long way to go. And, you know, you did a really good job, and a pat on the back is not always all we need. And so we started to create these tranquility rooms and or respite rooms. And it's a place that features music, aromatherapy, and images that contribute to, and lighting, to a very calming space. So if any of you are involved in design or innovation and you're doing anything for healthcare providers, please think about the bedside and all the noise that's everywhere. And so we started out with 2 rooms at Bay State, and now we have 10. So the nurses they want them local, right? You don't have to cross a bridge or go over a river to get to your tranquility room. So we did definitely need to put more in. But they're really, really, really important. And you know, when we put one in at Hopkins, no one thought anybody but the nurses were going to do it. But it's a badge access, right? So I look at the badge reader, I know at least how many people are going in there, and more physicians go in there than when it first opened. So I think that's pretty telling. I'm sorry, I just keep getting rid of these pop-ups. And these are UMass students? I know, are they not like amazing? So this was actually Thankful Thursday. They walked in the door, it was Thankful Thursday, and so we snapped a picture of them on a Thankful Thursday. But you know, I just want you to reflect on all the opportunities for those of you who are nurses in here to practice as a nurse. You can positively impact one patient, one community, one colleague, one state, one country, or the world. You just remember to do it with love, compassion, and kindness. And do what you love and love what you do, and your legacy will shine on for eternity. And I thank you very much for your time.